sometime in the 1950s, my dad was playing drums and at night, and during the day he was making kitchen cabinets. So he was a woodworker and a musician. And he'd play drums at night, and at that time, drumsticks were just one piece of wood. The tip was wood. He kept wearing the tip down on his stick, and he'd have to go buy new drumsticks. And he didn't have a lot of money at that time. He was raising a young family, and so he went into his woodworking shop, and he started experimenting with different materials to put a different type of tip on a drumstick to see if it would last longer. So he cut a tip out of the butt end of a screwdriver, cut a plastic tip, and it sounded lousy on the cymbal, and it didn't stay on. And a friend of his said, "Joe, there's a new material called nylon. Why don't you try it?" So he did, and he loved the way it sounded. He figured out how to keep the tip on, and that was kind of the beginning of our business. He originally was going to make the sticks only for himself, but the drummers in this area saw his sticks and they loved them, and they said, "Hey Joe, could you make me some sticks?" So one night my mom and dad sat down at the kitchen table, and they tried to estimate how many drummers there might be in the United States. And they weren't even thinking international at the time, just the United States. And he said, "You know, what the heck, I'm going to try. I'm going to go into the basement and start making drumsticks and see if we can sell them." And that was the beginning of the company. It obviously took off and became very successful. And then eventually we were selling drumsticks, drum brushes, timpani mallets, anything you could hit the drums with all over the world.
I'm Tony from Niagara Music, and we've been Regal tip dealers for, I'd say, about 18 years until 17 years or so. And it was great to carry a product that was made literally right down the street. That was always a big selling point.
Right here in Seven Country at J.D. Collado Manufacturing in Niagara Falls, millions of drumsticks begin life every year.
One of the most revolutionary things, obviously, was the tip on the drumstick. I mean, that really changed things because recording studios loved the drummers to use the nylon tip because of the way it cut through, the sound cut through when they were recording. So, and it also made the sticks last longer, and people didn't have to pay as much money to keep replacing their sticks. But that's not the only thing that was revolutionary. My dad and a lot of the people that worked there were really inventive. And for example, we ended up designing drum brushes that nobody had seen. The quality of the drum brushes was just incredible. And we ended up manufacturing more drum brushes than anybody in the world. We were super famous for those too. And I mentioned quality, and I think that's one of the things that was most revolutionary about the company is before my dad started making drumsticks, people that made sticks were basically, they were drum companies, and they would make drumsticks because drummers needed drumsticks, and they'd sell them in bulk. They wouldn't inspect them, they'd just sell whatever they made. So my dad, being a drummer, recognized the importance of having a quality product in your hand. So what he did is he started to match drumsticks in pairs so that they were matched by weight, right? And he inspected the sticks. So he only put the good sticks out on the market. And then we had a line of seconds with a different name. They were called JoJo's. And the seconds obviously sold for a lot less money. But the quality of our products was one of the most revolutionary things at the time. He's noted in the industry for basically improving and changing the quality of drumsticks, brushes, mallets, etc. on the market today.
Like the things that customers like the most about Regal tip sticks in particular. So there's a few things about them that made them kind of unique. Obviously, the first was the tip. Joe Collado invented the plastic tip, and most drummers that I know prefer them. They like the way that they sound and the attack that they give. So that was his big innovation. A couple other things that were interesting though were the way that they used the lacquer. Like they put a pretty heavy coat of lacquer on the sticks, and a lot of players really like that. It makes it a little easier to hold on to when your hands start sweating a bit. And the other thing was the taper of the stick. It's kind of a unique way of doing it. It makes them feel pretty balanced in your hand, and it just kind of added to the overall reason that people like Regal.
We're often, known obviously for the nylon tip drumstick, but as I mentioned earlier, we manufactured more drum brushes than anybody in the world, and we're really famous with jazz drummers because they love drum brushes. And one of the reasons that our brushes were so popular is that my dad designed a brush that when you pulled it in and out, and it didn't rattle because there's metal inside of this, and he designed it so metal never touched metal. And it didn't rattle. They loved his brushes. And plus, very often when brushes aren't well made, the wires fly out. Our wires didn't fly out. This is the nylon tip that changed it all and got us into business. The interesting thing is my dad never got a patent on this stick, on the nylon tip. He tried to get a patent, but he was told by the patent office that somebody put a metal tip on a drumstick back in the 1800s. So he couldn't get a patent for that reason. They wanted him to get an application patent, which would show how he applied the tip to the drumstick. But he decided not to get that because then everybody would know how he did it, and he didn't want to be copied. So he never got a patent on this. However, years later, he started working on a different tip, and I don't know if you can tell when you see this, but there are little ridges on this tip, and he did get a patent on this. And those ridges create a different sound. The nylon tip sound is a little sharper, brighter sound on the cymbals. This tip, because it's ridged, gives you the warmer sound of wood on the cymbals, but it lasts longer like a nylon tip. And this we do have a patent on. So way at the beginning, when my dad was trying to promote his drumsticks, there was a big band that came into town, and I know you won't know who this is, but it was the Woody Herman Band, and they were a very famous band at the time.
Here on stage, Woody Herman and his band from Metropole playing Caledonia, so let's have a great hand for them.
So my dad went, and a couple of his friends went to see the band and met the drummer afterwards. His name was Jay Canna. And I'm a little kid at the time, and I'm upstairs in my bedroom, and it's late at night. I'm asleep, but all of a sudden I heard all this noise downstairs, and I crept down the stairs, and I'm looking, and I'm going, what the heck? My dad brought basically the whole band back to the house, and my mother was busy cooking for them at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He had the whole band there. We've made drumsticks for all kinds of well-known musicians like and drummers like Alex Van Halen and Mick Fleetwood, the Grateful Dead, the Doobie Brothers. I'm going way back to like my generation right now. But over the years, yes, that's been one of our staples is a lot of very famous drummers would endorse our product, and that would help us sell the product. So my brother and sister and I were involved in the company, and we were the second generation. The company now has been passed on to the third generation. My brother, sister, and I are all retired, and my dad has passed, and the three of us are now retired. So the company is fully owned now and in the hands of my sister's daughter, Michelle. And we're kind of excited that it's going to be continued on by a family member, because we were trying to decide, do we sell it or whatever, but and what we did was pass it on to Michelle. And she's very experienced. She's probably worked there for over 20 years. So she's very experienced, knows the industry really well, so we're excited that she's got it.
I'm looking forward to being able to carry them again. And as far as I've heard, that looks like that's going to be happening sometime in the near future. So we're kind of holding our breath and hoping for the best with that.